and the Clean Environment Act. And it's under the Clean Environment Act that we find the phase for the Environmental Impact Assessment Regulation. And this is where, under that phase EIA, or Environmental Impact Assessment Regulation, if the recommendations that we've made to government in 116 recommendations, this is where we would see a lot of them being implemented through the EIA program. A little more on the EIA. As I just pointed out, it is the primary tool that we would see, at least for now, to regulate industry activity. And also it has the ability to implement necessary safeguards that are site-specific to the actual activity and the location of the activities going on as you step through the process. In terms of the public discussion document itself, it contains technical and environmental components of all land-based oil and natural gas activities. It covers all stages of development, from exploration right up until production and then eventual abandonment. It builds on the existing regulations that I've already highlighted, and as well, with respect to the bill on the document, it's come from many, many sources. Last summer we held a natural gas forum, June 23rd, where we garnered a lot of valuable information from that. We also had subject matter experts within internal government, and also we looked at the jurisdictions across North America, oil and gas jurisdictions, and their rules, and as new rules have been developed, and as well some 300 reports, critiques, model standards that have been developing as this industry is developing. This is the first principle. It's divided into 12 principles, I should say, that has 116 recommendations. So number one is geophysical or seismic testing. And this is a very common exploration technique that oil and gas companies use, and basically gives you an image of an ultrasound of the Earth, down to about 5 kilometers depth. The recommendations in this section ensure that this type of testing is done in a manner that protects property and the environment. And the recommendations would include enhanced setbacks from these seismic activities, as well as enhanced seismic test hole drilling for protection of surface and groundwater. Section 2 is all about wellbore integrity. And this is all about keeping the fluids and gases within the oil or gas well where they belong. This section contains the majority of the technical recommendations within the document. There's quite a few within this section. It is quite technical in nature. Some of the recommendations in this would be well casing design, specifications of the steel casing itself, as well as which goes hand in hand with wellbore cementing, the actual cement design, and standard evaluation of that cement job to ensure that it's appropriate and conducted well. As well as pressure testing of the drill stem equipment itself, not just for the drilling activity, but also for the hydraulic fracturing or well completion. The pressure testing is really critical to ensure that you have a sound type well. Section 3 of the document is about geological containment, and the recommendations are about making sure that the hydraulic fracturing operations are contained within the target rock formation. So another way of putting that is that the fractures are actually being created where they were intended to be created. The recommendations in here include the assessment of the geological containment ability of the reservoir rock itself before they do the hydraulic fracturing, and then after the hydraulic fracturing, actual analysis of the rock formation to tell us where the hydraulic fracturing actually occurred. Section 4 is management of waste at surface, and this section addresses leaks, spills, and the management of waste and chemicals at surface. So as opposed to the last two sections that we've dealt with, the wellbore or downhole, this section addresses the surface activity. Things in this section would be including well pads, construction standards in terms of berms, proper berming, controlled runoff, and liners in terms of the liners on the well pads themselves. The use of closed loop systems, so no open wastewater pits, everything has to be enclosed within tanks. And also the requirements for secondary containment around storage tanks. Section 5 is monitoring to protect the water quality. And this section is all about monitoring of protecting surface water as well as groundwater. There's recommendations in this section that include water well monitoring, which are pre and post drilling operations, as well as pre and post seismic operations. and also monitoring of the oil and natural gas wells themselves for corrosion, for leaks, and for wellhead pressures to ensure that, again, that wellbore integrity is being maintained. Section 6 is the sustainable use of water, and this section is focused on water management with respect to the oil and natural gas industry as a whole. In this section, there are recommendations specific to water recycling as being identified as the preferred method for dealing with wastewater. Also, there's a hierarchy of preferable water uses from non-potable to lastly potable water sources. So things like seawater, as well as treated municipal wastewater would be preferable to using surface water or groundwater for industry operations. As well, water use planning and reporting requirements for industry. Section 7 is about air emissions. And this section is all about monitoring those air emissions at the source, but also at the receptacle, so at the location where the air emissions may actually be felt. And there's also recommendations within this section that include emission reduction plans for oil and natural gas facilities to be constructed by industry. Section 8 is public safety and emergency planning. This section is aimed at planning for public safety and emergency response. And there are requirements within this section for the industry to have security plans and emergency response plans on site, and as well as filed with the regulator should something like this occur. Section 9 is about protecting communities and the environment. And this section addresses protection of the communities and the environment. And the recommendations within this section include setbacks from natural and cultural features, such as watercourses and dwellings, schools, that sort of thing, as well as noise and visual impact mitigation and monitoring. And a final recommendation within this section would be transportation. The oil and natural gas industry can be a transportation-heavy industry, and recognizing that using like haul planning to deal with public safety, as well as road use agreements to deal with the compensation for road damage. Section 10 is reducing financial risks and protecting the landowner rights. This section addresses the financial security and other ways of protecting landowners and New Brunswick taxpayers. Within this section, there's recommendations for property damage security, as well as well damage security. There's also a protocol in this section with water supply replacement and restoration, and as well, more on the ethical side, land agent licensing and standards for land agents that are working for the industry, that they have to have codes of conduct and have training basically to work with products. Section 11 is sharing information, and this section focuses on ensuring that all stakeholders have common access to information about oil and natural gas activities going on in the province. Some of the recommendations within this section include public disclosure of the environmental impact assessment data that industry is submitted. They submit the information to make that accessible to the public, as well as frac fluid additives and chemicals that are used in the fracturing process, making that access to the public. And another recommendation within this section is also for notification radiuses of oil and natural gas activities going on. Section 12 is all about maintaining an effective regulatory framework, and it deals with continuous improvement or a set of rules for this industry. It makes recommendations within it that the EI regulation that I pointed out earlier should be continued to be the regulatory tool going forward. Also, it notes the gathering of additional scientific information as these new reports continually come up, that we need to integrate those into the regulatory framework as we move forward, and continuous improvement in general with flexibility. Just switching gears a little bit now to the royalty and revenue sharing. Government has introduced profit sharing royalties that would see the province receive 40% of the profits of the shale gas industry at commercial development. Now, if we did have a commercial development of the shale gas industry in the province, it would be several years before we would see significant profits due to large upfront costs of this industry. That's why government is also maintaining the current 10% of revenue as a minimum to ensure that we continue to receive royalties until the 40% profit share will kick in. As well, government has also announced a revenue sharing structure that would see hosting landowners, that is, landowners hosting well natural gas wells in the property or on the property, would receive 0.5% of royalties, as well as municipalities within a 25-kilometer radius would receive 2% of the royalties. And those royalties would be based on the volume and selling prices that gas on those wells. Government has also introduced administrative penalties, or stricter penalties. Here are some of the current and new proposed penalties. You can the table there, I realize it's a little difficult to see, but basically under this new penalty structure, the maximum penalty in Provincetown would be $1 million, which represents the strongest penalty in North America. And that's it for my portion for the presentation. I'll hand it back over to Michael, and I'd like the contact information up there.
Thank you very much, Craig. So before we go to comments from anybody, I think we have comments on the floor. Just to let you know, I'm going to be a little bit of a bad guy. I'm going to try to get as many people as possible to speak. So I might at some point try to focus your comments just so that everybody has a chance to go. But I have quite a bit of latitude, so also I would ask you if you could to identify yourself and where you're from, or if you represent an association, because we're recording the proceedings tonight, not only for the live streaming on the computer, obviously, but also to help Dr. LaPierre in his work when we're sort of doing a summary of everything on this one. So with that, the floor is yours, and you're more than welcome to go ahead. Mr. Bergeville.
Dr. LaPierre, good evening. Committee members, good evening. For the record, my name is Bernard Ducabel. I live in West Francis, and I'm a retired corporate safety advisor. This evening, I would like to bring to the committee, the committee knows this is my third attendance in this meeting, so literally I've given hundreds and hundreds of followers who follow this committee. I'd like to, Dr. LaPierre, I'd like to draw attention to two articles that just came about, and it was in Saturday's paper. I just learned this evening that this document has been around for some time, but we as the general population have not been aware of this type of document. And the document that I'm referring to is published by the International Energy Agency. And on Saturday then, our local paper picked up on it on the front page, no rules for golden age of gas. And then they went on in the same day on the public opinion page, and the editorial, it says, referendums, no thanks. And they say source. Fortunately, each week seems to bring new sources of information. And I like to pat myself a little bit on the back, because I have brought quite a bit of information to this committee, i.e. An internationally recognized document called ISO 26000, International Standard Organization. And it's not a standard, it's a guide. And the name of ISO 26000, and you can get it on the web page, is called social responsibility. And it is a roadmap that the ISO organization has put in front of over 100 countries throughout the world. Many companies have agreed to it, but close to 100 countries have signed on to the ISO 26000 social responsibility. And to make it a point, Doctor, is that this document that the International Energy Agency calls Golden Rules for Golden Age of Gas, that even the New York Times has stated that this is a must-read for every government that thinks about natural development. It's a must-read for every company that's ever been involved in natural development, and the general population. It should be a must-read for the concerned citizens. And I will provide you, as you know, Doctor, I'm very freely with my information, and I will provide you with this background information. But to pose the question is, will this committee make it generally known on their website so that we, as citizens of the province of New Brunswick, can access that information? And it's a 150-page document, dear Doctor. So, because it's been around since May, and it's just tonight, me, as I consider myself relatively informed on this subject matter, that I learned about that this document was about. And maybe it's the first time you hear it. I don't know. Had you heard of it before?
I read the paper you got.
Oh, but not the document itself. Okay. So I printed out the sources for it, and I hope that you will highlight it on the web page.
If you could just, David's going to comment on that because he's done a lot of cases with it.
I'd just like to acknowledge that, thanks for bringing that to our attention. It did come out, I think it was the end of May of this year, and we have reviewed it in terms of, it's got a lot of good principles in it. I see it as a kind of a high-level document. It doesn't have a lot of technical detail, but we've evaluated it in the sense that we've looked at it in terms of the recommendations we've made, and see if it covers the same basis.
Thank you.
Point two that I'd like to make, dear Doctor and panelists, is that in 2006 we had a mishap, and we had a 4,000-liter spill in Penoskos of fracking fluid, and a report was made, and I spoke on it before, and I feel strongly about it in that I'm a Canadian registered safety professional, and I've got to put an R behind that. And that means that normally when a project gets done, the engineers will ask, what lessons have we learned when we went through this process? So we had on record the mishap of this spill, and the Department of Environment has taken the print on page as gospel truth. And they have not gone outside to other regulatory agencies to see if what has been provided to the Environment Department can stand scrutiny. So it has not, it didn't get a peer review. And I feel we need to do that in detail, dear Doctor, and we need to get Work Safe New Brunswick involved, and we need to get other people involved, because I'm going to present here with you this evening a copy of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Okay? The province CAP, the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, always espouses best practices. My question is, and through your committee, you can get that question from Work Safe New Brunswick, did this company report this mishap, as is a requirement under section 43 point something, and I'll quote that properly here. It's 43 subsection 4, and I'll quote, where an accidental explosion or accidental exposure to a biological, chemical, or physical agent occurs at the place of employment, whether or not the person is injured, the employer shall notify the Chief Compliance Officer within a period of 24 hours after the occurrence. So we have a well-pat mishap. The discharge of the fracking fluid could be up to 11,000 pounds, that translates approximately to 140 times the atmospheric pressure. Was this incident reported? We hear time and time again, Dr. McNair, best practices. Believe us, our industry lives up to the best practices. CAP, in with their $22 million PR machine arms, and they're going to jump in front of you, and if they already haven't, and they will say, oh, our members will accept best practices. Well, I'm going to let the industry standard stand that is in the States. In the last 12 weeks, the last 12 to 14 weeks, they had 12 fatalities in that industry. Now, to bring it a little closer to home, in Alberta, we have a pipeline that was 40 years old, crossing the river, and it sprung a leak. Where is CAP in that model, Jeff? They have no, all they are is the PR machine of the industry. If the industry adheres to best practices, they would say, we got a pipeline there, it's 40 years old, we should have replaced it when it was 20 years old. And we wouldn't have a pipeline there. So when you hear from the industry that powerful lobby, it's in the top 3 most powerful lobbies in the country. The committee needs to be cognizant of that. So when I said they should have an independent review, I have a business card here that I will share with you, and it's of our government, our federal government, and it's the radiation specialist that's in charge of the Atlantic region. Why not have that person do a peer review on this particular mishap? Because we need to learn from that. And there was a safety manual published after the incident, and I have got warm and fuzzy feelings. As a retired safety professional, I haven't got warm and fuzzy feelings of what is in that manual when it comes to the emergency procedures.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. If there is anybody else, then you can come back.
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. Anybody else have any comments?
Hi, my name is Jane Bradford, and I'm here with several of my neighbors from the Thornhill Area Residents Association. While we were glad to see our government put together a discussion paper with some more regulations, we want to be very clear to this group, as we have been over the last 2 years, that we don't feel any amount of regulation is going to control this industry entirely, and we still have some very strong concerns as they relate to air pollution from flaring, processing, and leakage, ground contamination from released contaminants including uranium and arsenic, and contaminants from spillage, noise pollution from traffic, compression processes, drilling, etc., traffic, and the estimates given to us by the industry show up to 100 heavy trucks per day, 24/7. Road conditions, decreasing property values, market value, not government assessed value, and our way of life. People have chosen to live in areas like Havelock and Thornhill and Petcodiac because it's the way of life possible. And many of them commute great distances to go to work. And I have to say, in my 50 years, I've never felt so disengaged and disenfranchised with the government, ever. These types of public forums, we're always told the government is here to listen to you and listen to your concerns, but we've been pretty vocal over the last 2 years in every forum that we have had, and been very clear that this is not an industry that we want in our communities. And I guess one of the things that we're very much afraid of is some of the mistruths and half-truths that we're often told. We often feel that should anything bad happen, we're going to be left up to dry like our neighbors in Penobscot. Minister Northrop said very recently that it was his understanding that no fracking would take place in 2012. So my first question to the committee is, why are there so many water trucks going to the Green Road area in Elgin at this time? And I'll provide my email address afterwards, and I would like to have a response by email so that I can share it with the group. The other concern I have was today, actually, when several back trucks were seen cleaning up something that looked like a spill near the CCS line. But when I watched the news tonight, I didn't see anything advising those of us who live in that general area of a spill. And I know that it often happens when there are spills that we only find out months later that something had happened. We don't feel this is good enough for us. And I would just like to conclude my comments by saying, I understand that when you were in Durham Bridge, somebody very eloquently there, and I'm not sure who it was to give him credit, said that we're not here to beg your permission to not destroy our community. We're here to tell you that you are not allowed to do it.
Thank you very much. And I'd ask if you could provide us with what you had, that would be awesome. Thank you very much for that very short, succinct comment. Anybody else? Sir?
My name is Bob Pickett. I'm from Cornhill, which is about 4 to 5 kilometers in that direction. I'm here to present a document. I want to read this document to you. It's entitled, Why Regulations Can't Protect Us. The original author of this document is Mr. Carl Arnold from New York. The document has been altered by myself to suit the present conditions in New Brunswick. I will give you a copy of this document, Dr. Perrier, and also any members of the media that happen to be here. According to all leading indicators, if preliminary testing in New Brunswick shales and sandstones go well, industry plans to drill several thousand wells into our countryside. Most of these wells will be hydrofrac'd to get the most gas out. Corridor Resources have already hydrofrac'd some 29 wells in the Penobscot area. No regulation can prevent the salts, heavy metals, and radioactive substances loosened by the fracking process from coming up with the fracking fluids. No regulation can stop up to 65 to 90% of the toxic fraction chemicals from remaining underground. No regulations can prevent these chemicals, salts, heavy metals, and radioactive substances now loosened and mixed by the fracking process from becoming a toxic underground plume that can wangle its way into existing fissures as well as into new fractures created by the drilling. No regulation can predict or control the underground migration of these toxic plumes. Similar plumes are already oozing under Sublette County, Wyoming, Endicott, New York, and Greenport, Brooklyn. No regulation can predict or control the time frame over which such plumes may migrate. Years, decades, millennia. No regulation can prevent the deterioration of the steel and cementitious casing intended to protect drinking water over decades and centuries ahead. No regulation in this era of economic plummet can scrape together the billions of dollars needed to construct and maintain industrial waste treatment plants, which do not exist anywhere in this province, but might be able to filter the toxic chemicals, heavy metals, and radioactive material from the fracking waste. Radioactive cuttings and drilling muds from Pennsylvania are already being dumped in New York landfills, potentially leaching in unpredictable directions. No regulation can create a safe manner or safe location for permanent storage of waste. Even if the economy could support the very expensive construction and maintenance of appropriate industrial waste treatment plants, only supposedly filtered, the remaining toxic waste still must be put somewhere. The produced waters that continue to flow from wells during gas production are too saline to be treated and must be stored somewhere. In respect to high-pressure injection wells, our government is currently saying this process will not be allowed. But this could change. No regulation can avoid the risk of potential leakage and aquifer contamination or earthquakes caused by high-pressure waste disposal injection wells. Tremors from such activity have already caused damage in Ashtabula, Ohio, and authorities are presently investigating storms of earthquakes in Selburne, Texas, Gee, Arkansas, and Gadsden, West Virginia. No regulation drafted will require that all gas produced will contribute to energy independence. The gas will be shipped out of the country. It is more profitable to export than to sell domestically. At present, most of the Penobscot wells are hooked to the Maritime's Northeast Pipeline that goes to the United States. Thus, the profit may already be going beyond our borders. No regulation can guarantee enforcement. The record shows that drillers will not obey the grossly inadequate rules now in place to safeguard the safety and health of people, our living things, or the environment. The trail of ruined lives and landscapes is documented in thousands of articles, many YouTube videos, and several films. That's the end of my document.
Thank you for that.
Good evening. I think we are all very much concerned what is being, what is going on rather be shut down our schools. One point I want to make, about half of the population of New Brunswick, we live in rural, unincorporated areas. We just have nobody else to speak for us than we ourselves.
That's right, Warren.
Municipalities, they have their municipal representatives, they get democratically elected. But here in the rural areas, we got rural planning districts, and the officials there are being appointed. So we got no input. And so much for democracy for the people in rural areas. But Mr. Pickett stated it quite eloquently and about all the different things and problems that will pop up environmentally, and we shall not forget about potential health problems when our groundwater, our drinking water is contaminated, and those health problems, they can last for generations to come. And in generations to come, where will the gas companies be? Where will the responsibility? Where will the present government be? The companies come and go, governments come and go, and the people who live here, they have to live with the consequences. But I want to mention another aspect, and that is the economic aspect. Some they want to present it as the gas exploration and the gas industry as a kind of a mini gold rush. But I think what they're rushing after is more of a food gold rush. And when I look just at the economic aspect, the very most the government expects in annual royalty revenues is somewhere around $200 million. Now, thanks to the diligence of successive governments here in New Brunswick over the last 50, 60 years, we have come now to a point where we import 90% of the food into the region. that we easily can produce in a sustainable way. We don't have to buy into the agendas of Monsanto and of the chemical companies. And I just did a rough estimate, and that would mean at least an input into the provincial economy annually of between $6 and $7 billion. That is about twice as much as what the whole forestry industry was worth in this province before it took a nosedive. And I think, you know, it's basic economics. Doesn't make sense. We better start paying attention and start producing to get our food here. And the way the situation is, food prices will go up, and gas prices, they are the winner of the world market. And right now, they took a nosedive. And as I say, we can produce here food healthy in a sustainable way, where we again adopt the non-proven traditional methods of producing food, and we can produce healthy food for the people that will improve the health of the people in this region. Whereas I see with the gas project, there is most likely the likelihood that the health of that it will be detrimental for the health of the people, that we have seen in several areas, for example in North America, where this gas industry has taken off and left the people in the region with a lot of pollution. But as I say, you know, in the end, it comes down, is it a benefit for the people of the province, or is it no benefit, but basically has a negative impact on the people of the province, on their health and on the economy? And I say this gas development definitely it will not will have a positive impact on neither the health of the people nor on the economy of the province. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Megan DeGrasse. My husband and I live close to Anagan, which is a little farther away than Cornwall from here, but still relatively close, maybe 57 kilometers. And I am a born and bred New Brunswicker who's a rural person, grew up on a farm, and my husband is a city boy who we don't hold it against him. We are also both of us relatively young professionals who made the choice to go to school, get a higher education, live in the city for a while, and then 3 years ago we made the very conscious decision to leave the city and buy a place in Anagan. And it took us 2 years to get our lives in order so that we could move our jobs from Fredericton to the Moncton area and move to our house. So we made a point in our lives, we made a choice to move from a relatively large city, large by New Brunswick standards anyway, and live a life that included a rural existence, and included growing our own food and worrying in a quiet environment where there's nothing but bird songs and the wind and blackbirds. So we're part of that movement, I guess, of sort of youngish professional people who are trying to move back to the land and work that balance between a city life that gives you a paycheck, but also have a quiet home to go to. And so I'd like to go on record on behalf of myself and Brian Speaks, my husband, and say that we're very much concerned about the possibility of shale gas development in New Brunswick as a whole, and of course in our own, close to our own home. And I'd like to also go on record to join a group of people in this province who are calling for a referendum on the topic, because I think that's really the only real answer that the people, the only way that people in this province can really give voice to their concerns. And I hope that that will be a recommendation of yours when you get your premier or anything. And I'd also like to make the suggestion that it could benefit everybody. I think if it made a requirement for senior officials in the businesses that are proposing to develop shale gas in these provinces, those senior officials, senior engineers or CEO, whatever, if they were required to live in the communities in which they are putting in well pads. they are forced to move there. And I think that if, say, the president of the company, was required to move he himself or she and their family to a community that was, being fracked and was experiencing some of these nasty effects, I think that might, go a long way to improving some of the conditions that we are all looking for.